Welcome to Almost Above Average with Chris McIntyre. In this episode, we sit down with the phenomenal Dr. Tabitha Moore of Intentional Evolution Consulting, a powerhouse with 25 years of experience in identity-based equity and racial justice consulting, holding a PhD in transformative social change from Saybrook University. Discover Dr. Moore's inspiring journey from leading an NAACP chapter in Rutland, Vermont, to becoming a powerful advocate for social change. She's also my cousin, ironically. Dive into this exciting episode to explore the remarkable life and impactful work of Dr. Tabitha Moore. A must listen for anyone passionate about making a difference in the world. Please enjoy. That's crazy. This is all our family, and I don't really...
None of us, it's so funny. I was thinking about it. I'm like, our family is just really... We're close, but we're also super disconnected.
We're close and disconnected. We all love each other for sure, but we don't talk enough, I think. I love social media for that reason, because over the years I have been able to watch you guys kind of grow up and see what you guys are doing. I'm sure vice versa, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it was Facebook that really helped us to start to connect with one another and get to know each other. I mean, like, I was out in New York for the longest time. Y'all were out in Nevada.
Yeah.
Aunt Janine was back home. Mom and Dad were in Delaware.
You're in Delaware now?
No, my parents are.
Oh.
What am I going to do in Delaware? I'm in Essex.
You're in Essex?
Yeah, it's so funny. I know.
My hometown.
I know. Where did you all live in Essex?
I don't even remember.
Were you town or junction people?
Junction.
Okay, I am.
Essex
too.
Junction. Yeah. God, if I heard the street name, I just don't remember.
So do you remember like what it looked like or where? I mean, I'm sure it's probably changed in the last 30 years. But.
No. I was 5 when I left, and then we went back when I was like, I don't know, 11 or 12 or something, just to check on the house and knock on the door all awkwardly, like, hey, we used to live here. Can we come look?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they let us in.
Mom. Yeah, ask your mom.
I will. It's like on the tip of my tongue, too. It's going to come to me as soon as we're done with the podcast.
Well, your brothers graduated from Essex, right?
No, they both graduated. Anthony graduated in Texas somewhere. He grew up in Houston, and Sean graduated in Reno, in Nevada, where we lived.
But didn't they go to EHS?
Yeah. I don't think they got to high school. It might have been middle school.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the last.
ADL.
Yeah.
All right.
You have one kid, right? Your daughter?
3.
You have 3?
Yeah.
Man,
my eldest, Reese just turned 21.
Oh my gosh.
Reese turned 21. My son Bryn is 16 and Hadley is 12.
Man, the house full. Is the oldest gone already?
Oh, she's been gone. She was 18 and she's like, I am not gonna. She's like, I don't want to live by your rules. I'm like, you can't be here.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess this is it. So she's been. I don't know how anybody can make it at that age these days on their own.
Right.
I mean, everything is just so unaffordable. So unaffordable.
I know. I think my daughter, like, she's married and has a kid, and they're doing fine. Like, I didn't have that when I was their age. You know?
How old is your daughter?
20, or my stepdaughter, she's 20, and I have a stepson that's 21. They both have children.
Okay.
And then my boys are 14, and then my son turned 12 today.
Oh, happy birthday, son.
Yeah. He's little. I'm going to go pick him up early from school after we get done.
Oh, you got little Aries on your hands.
Yeah. Full Aries.
Well, Reese's was on the 3rd, so.
On April 3rd?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
That's the eldest. I know. I named all my kids. I named my kids before I knew, what they were gender was, and I named them all gender inclusive names. That way, like, if they realize one day that they are different from the gender they were raised as, the last thing they have to worry about is changing their name.
Yeah,
so
that's very sweet.
Well, but people always, I'm so sorry I misgendered your kid. I'm like, well, I think it would be a bigger deal if I hadn't intended. You know what I mean? I like it when people are like, her, him, and not like it, but they've been dealing with it. I mean, they've all 3 of them have dealt with it. So.
Well, it's good to pick names that go both ways.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, there's something to be said. Like, each of my kids has kind of a family name for a middle name, but their first name is kind of based on the personality, in the room. And
I like that. That's interesting.
It was fun.
I went after, I tried to get my kids named with Polynesian names that I've never heard before. And so that's how we landed on, actually, Sean, my brother Sean, he came up with Ailani, and it means Ireland in Samoan. So, because Amanda's Irish, so he's Irish Samoan.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
No, that's great.
Yeah, but no one can ever spell it or say it. It's spelled Aialani, and everyone wants to say like Ailani.
Are they white? No.
Of course. Every time.
The black folks, we'll add like another punctuation in there. Like, shouldn't there be an apostrophe?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Every culture has their own, thing. But that's cool
true.
that you did that. I was thinking about that a lot. I'm like, we really do have a fairly multi-ethnic family, but like, we didn't really talk about it a lot growing up.
No, and honestly, I'm really surprised that because my memories of Vermont, I was like, the only black people in Vermont were my family. Like, that was how I felt. Like,
Jeremy,
when I left,
me, Bill.
yeah, Billy, yeah. That's all I thought. And then when I was kind of like watching you over the years and then doing a little bit of research before we talked today, like, racism is a big thing in Vermont. I never pictured it like that.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if, Anthony, looking back, if he remembers anything. He went through middle school, right?
Right.
But I don't know.
He might. I'll have to get him on and just to talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's just a different flavor because Vermont is so white that the first thing that happens is complete erasure, right? It's not like where there's any black. You can't like point to a section of Vermont, say, or a section of any real town around here and say, oh, that's the black community. Right. So the first thing that happens is that there's destabilization because of that. And it becomes really difficult to get critical mass internally. And then I think the second thing that happens is that whiteness kind of self-perpetuates. And so if there is an issue related to race, come here, cousin Chris. Come here. This is our newest addition.
Oh, Suki?
Suki.
Is it a girl?
Yeah, he's a boy.
He's a boy? Suki?
Yeah, it means beloved in Japanese.
Oh, that's cute. Suki. Oh, that's why they say that.
Suki. Yep.
Suki.
But yeah, I mean, so the first thing that kind of happens, and like if you're raised here and born here, especially, like us, we had white moms and, there's just that lack of connection, and then whiteness perpetuates itself. So if something does happen along the lines of race, what happens is that the people with power will just be like, we did right, didn't we? Yeah, we totally did right. And just kind of this weird sort of circle jerk.
They high five each other, right? And
yeah, and you're like, oh God. And if you speak out, then you're the bad guy. And so Vermont has, I mean, like people like Curtis Reed and Pastor Arnold have been working here since the 70s on racial justice issues. And I think in the last 15 years, I think really since the Occupy movement, Vermont has started to see some real work on racial justice. And then, of course, the Black Lives Matter resurgence in the early 2010s. And then again, I think with the murders of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, people were like, oh shit, what are we going to do?
Right.
And I came home because I'm like, Vermont is beautiful, right? And like, I wanted the kids to be close to Grampy and the land, and I wanted them to really have a sense of why it's important to, number one, center yourself in the earth. Right. And then number two, to protect it, right? And to be able to be really still. Like you can be still in a city, but there's still traffic, there's still noise, like, right. I mean, remember, you go out to Grampy's Woods and you couldn't hear, like you'd be just you and the trees.
Right. For the people that don't know, I mean, no one listening to this knows this, but my grandfather, there's like this McIntyre property and it's tucked away in this big, vast forest out in the middle of nowhere. And it is serene, pristine, and beautiful. I have so many good memories of catching frogs with Tim and picking up mushrooms from the cow patties.
Oh, God.
It was a horrible idea.
Oh, Lord. I remember one year, y'all were up there, actually. I don't know if you remember this, but I'm pretty sure I remember Sean and Anthony being there. and it was the spring. Maybe we had gotten together for Easter or something. And the farmer had just like put all the cow manure, on the hill, like as you're coming up to our Grampies, there's that big, like, they used to be all McIntyre Simpson property there. And they would spread like an acre of manure. And the guy, it was like me and all the boys. And they're like, let's run across it and see who doesn't fall.
Oh, man.
And I was small enough to like be able to run across the top.
Yeah.
But they were it was like we tried to like sprint across this whole like field of cow patty. And they were all falling in it. And oh God, it was funny. But yeah, I mean, I came home because I wanted to, like, it's so important to be connected to the earth. And I wanted my kids to have that sort of rooted legacy. And, I love Vermont, like feeling that kind of invisibility that comes with not having anybody like you, and knowing that I was starved for that, which is where I think I started thinking about like you and your brothers being here and, having your Polynesian roots and like how important that's been, for all of you. And I was like, I'm going to come back, but I'm going to need to be a beacon. I need to like do something for the young people who are growing up without any Black or brown educators or people in professional spaces to support them. Mm-hmm. And that's why I started that branch of the NAACP. Had no idea what I was doing.
You started it. Okay. I didn't know if you were just became the president or if that was a new thing.
It didn't exist. No.
Are you still doing that?
Mm-mm. Because I moved. Well, I mean, I still actually, yes. So I started, it was the second branch in the state of Vermont. And then the first branch I got going and then that branch crumbled. And then I kept going and met my dear friend Stefan, who started the Windham County branch. So now there are 2 active branches in the state, and my branch actually is the second largest in New England.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But
That's huge.
When we had to move, I can't be president of the Rutland area branch and not live in Rutland area. But when we moved up here, I still work with the presidents and, help out the branches. I do a lot around criminal justice. And as you know, that's huge for the NAACP. So I support their work related to criminal justice and kind of giving them guidance and whatever they might need.
And you're a mom and somehow you found time to become a doctor. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. It's funny because I just was talking to Mom yesterday. I made our plans to fly out for graduation. So it's still, all my friends with PhDs are like, oh, it's going to be you're going to feel so different when you get it, blah, 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 blah. Did I freeze? Are you frozen?
Kind of.
Okay. Kind of frozen.
You're good.
Is that me? Okay. And I don't feel, if anything, it's kind of a letdown.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's like when you hit a milestone birthday and everybody's like, so do you feel different? You're like, no.
Yeah. I just read this book. It was called Atomic Habits. They were talking about goals being like, it's cool to have them, but when you get there, it's like, now what? And I kind of agree with that. And I've been kind of going down that vein also. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I know what I want to do. I'm just going to go that way every day. That's it.
Yeah. And I think it's healthy to start to develop a realistic sense of what happens when you reach a goal. And it's just like, for me, I kind of think about it like, it's our life's journey. And, maybe a goal is just a pit stop or like a gas fill up, but, so like getting my PhD really, it didn't give me a sense of self-worth. It didn't, all it did was affirm for me that I can beat systems that were never meant for me, which is huge, I think.
That's great. Yeah.
That's there's nothing to be sneezed at, but I find that, that's what a lot of my work centers around is, number one, making it so people can see themselves represented and reflected in systems and that systems are healthier.
Right.
And then number two, like I like a challenge,
Yeah.
And so that's
just to see if you can, right?
Just to see if I can. Well, yeah, yeah.
I swear that's mostly why I do anything anymore. It's just like, or someone told me that I couldn't, or they doubted that I could. So now I'm like, all right.
Oh yeah,
I have to do that.
Yeah, that's a great motivator too, and when my family and I, faced the harassment and everything, I was like, I'm moving, but I'm not leaving. And I'm going to continue to do this work, and I'm going to do it even bigger and better, because all you
Right.
did was just tell me that I'm doing, like, when people hate at me, like, it doesn't stop me. It just tells me that I'm probably doing something right, and it's something that they don't like.
Right.
And so keep going, but I might need to switch up positions. If you're standing on my neck, I'm going to get you off my neck, and then I'm going to keep doing what I was doing. And
Right.
so I built my business. So I'm a full-time self-employed consultant, working across the U.S., primarily in Vermont, but across the U.S. now, about to put out a couple books. And, the haters only made me stronger. So I guess thank you.
Yeah.
Like, you gave
I
me
love
something
it.
to write about. Thank you.
Right. So let's talk about your business. What is
Sure.
your business?
So it's called Intentional Evolution. And really, the name is in the business. I'm very simple when it comes to that kind of thing.
No thought at all. It's very intentional.
Right. My whole thing is just helping, because we're all kind of on a journey, and we're all constantly evolving in our individual selves and in our collective selves and in our systemic selves. And so I want to make that more intentional for people, right? So, I'm a couple and family therapist. My master's degree is in couple and family therapy. And, so really rooted in the individual and how they relate to others. And then, my PhD is transformative social change. So my business is all about kind of the intersections of individual and communal identities. And how do we navigate them? How do we celebrate them? And how do they inform systems operation?
Can you give me an example of that? I don't fully understand that concept.
So it was funny. I just had this conversation with a client recently about the importance of representation, gender representation in the field of engineering. And we were talking about, like, I'm a huge Boston Red Sox fan. And when I go to the bathroom, between innings, it's really obvious that there were no women engineers
Right.
that designed those restrooms.
Was there a trough in the women's bathroom too?
No, there's just not enough. Right.
Yeah.
And there's always lines.
There's always a line at the women's bathroom.
Because when people design buildings for efficiency, they don't take into consideration women's needs. Or in medicine, for example, 2023 was the first year that menstrual products were actually tested with real blood.
Really?
So all of our
2023?
2023, Christopher.
What were they using?
Water? Were using, water or any other material. So in terms of what we then believe to be true for the different types of absorbencies, it's based on male-centric ways of knowing, doing, and being. In medicine, I don't know if you just saw what happened, but the thousands of Black folks who were denied kidneys for kidney transplant because of a racially biased test. So there's all of these ways that identity certainly informs the way that our systems operate,
right?
That we don't necessarily think of. And so my goal is to help people understand what that is, but also understand who they are as, people with identities, right. And how that informs what they do. And, there's all kinds of ways. I mean, people call it DEI, people call it, all kinds of, EEOC, like there's all kinds of acronyms to describe it. But really for me, it's the intersection of individual and interpersonal and communal and identity and the workplace.
Yeah.
So I go in and I help people figure out what does that mean and how do they evaluate and create evaluation plans so that they.
How do you get clients for that business? Is it word of mouth?
Yeah, I'm not. Everybody wants me to expand. It's so interesting with businesses because I never wanted to be a business. I'm not super business oriented.
Yes, you are.
I'm learning to be, but people keep wanting me to expand what I do. But I don't advertise and I don't, I have a website, I have all that stuff, but most of it is like through the workshops and things that I do, people see what I do and then they learn she knows what she's doing.
Right.
but in the next couple of years, when I put out the books and curating my online content, so I'll have like an online training content for folks.
Nice.
For some of the basics.
Okay.
That, I'll start to probably see some of that expansion, but
well, when you get to that point, when you have your course and stuff together, let's get on a podcasting and we can start pushing it.
Yeah, I was just mapping it out. I have I hired somebody to do my online course kind of. There's like a bunch of different courses there. So yeah, but I love my work. I love traveling and working with people. And I think right now people are so afraid to talk about justice, equity, and diversity and inclusion. People are, worried about backlash and, people with majority identities like white folks and men are like, oh, can't say anything anymore. I don't know what to do. And I like being able to help people to get comfortable with these kind of, I'm like, it's who you are. First of all, let's start with who you are. They're like, that's it. I'm like, let's start there.
Yeah. I'm a black man from Ohio or something, or a white dude from.
Yeah. So I like being able to help people to feel confident and comfortable with, number one, who they are and all that means, especially, people who've been oppressed and marginalized, and then helping folks with majority identities to recognize that somebody else having a positive, healthy identity doesn't mean that you can't have one too. We just need to, consider all the other
You probably come in contact with a lot of clients that I would imagine lie to themselves, like don't know their own identity. They have a misguided thought of what their identity is. I know I'm saying that because I was an alcoholic for so long. And now that I realized I was lying to myself for so long about so many different things, that my identity was in limbo. I didn't know who I was for the longest time. I mean, to a certain extent, I'm just still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, you seem to be doing a fabulous job. It's been great watching your growth and, and change. It's so hard and painful, isn't it? But yeah, I think, and that's why my roots are in psychology and, systems therapy, is because what I have found over, 25 years doing this work, almost 30 years, is that people lie to themselves or are unwilling to see parts of themselves for so many different reasons. And, when we were kids, Aunt Janine used to sell jewelry. I don't know if you remember that.
Mm-mm.
But I remember she would have me up to her house. It was like a real big deal. Loved Aunt Janine. And she would, her jewelry would get all tangled up. And I would love to just sit there for hours while she was talking to the adults and just untangle the jewelry and untangle. And so by the end of the night or whatever it was, she'd have this beautiful, kind of clean sense of, jewelry that was all organized. And she would let me pick something out on occasion. And I think that that's kind of where my love of doing this work came from, is that it's really messy and people are complicated creatures. And we have all kinds of reasons why we get kind of stuck on something.
Yeah.
And I like undoing that and then recognizing how that shapes, these
the whole
things. Yeah.
How it plays into the big picture.
Yeah.
I feel I can identify with that. I am kind of in that place too, where I'm constantly trying to solve problems, even they're the little problems that no one else is ever going to know. Like I'm always trying to, solve a problem wherever I go, even if I'm just by myself. I want to fix something now.
Well, and do you ever stop and think about how, your dad was an engineer, right?
Yeah.
Like that was his whole identity, right?
Right.
Like, do you ever think about how that's related to kind of our cultural upbringing and our family past?
How my dad being an engineer?
Not even just him being an engineer, but that fix it kind of.
And the older I get, I could feel like my face will do something. I'm like, that's my dad. Or like I step a certain way, like that's my dad. Or the way that I think, like he would sit down at his desk every single night and cut coupons out for hours. Now I don't do that, but I will, pick on my guitar for hours or like do something like that. It's not cutting out coupons, but I'm actively attentive on something, and that it reminds me of what my dad used to do.
Oh, that's right. That's so nice. And you know where he got the couponing, right?
Was it Grampy?
Nana.
Was it?
Nana had filing cabinets and filing cabinets. She was obsessed. Making money. I still have some of the toys and stuff that she got from her. She was like, before there was extreme couponing on TV.
Yeah.
Like nanos, I mean, and they'd have like these baggies, and I think Grampy would help too, but he definitely got that there. And, you relate that back to like them growing up in the Depression era, like,
Right.
it's just, to me, it's just really cool to see these patterns and over time
and see them repeat in our own family. That is kind of cool.
Yeah. And then, what do we do with that?
Right. So. Well, hopefully we make it better and keep it going, pass it to the next, our next guys.
And it's funny because going back to what you're saying in the beginning, our family seems so disconnected, but I'm like, I wonder if our generation is going to be the one to reconnect us.
I kind of think so. And here's some hope that I have. My children, 14 and 12 now, they listen to music that I was listening to as a kid, like Green Day and just old school stuff like Eazy-E, NWA. Like, I love that. And that, like, it seems like their style is like older. Like, it's not tight jeans anymore. There's like, I don't know. There's hope for the future.
But it's all coming, it's so funny to watch these things cycle, right? Because the 90s are now popular again.
Right.
And I remember, in the 80s, like we'd walk out wearing things and, our parents would be like, oh, we should have kept our stuff from back when we were kids because that's what we wore. And we're like, whatever.
Right.
And now I'm like, oh my gosh, we're doing it again.
I know.
So it's cool. Yeah, they do. I mean, remember like Friends got super popular again? Yeah. And it's like, what is happening right now?
I'm going to order a No Fear shirt.
Yeah. Do you remember like the hypercolor shirts and like
the
trolls, what was it, like the butt naked troll thing?
Yeah, I remember those.
That was good.
The 90s were the greatest generation. That was my favorite decade.
It was pretty wild. It was certainly... It was something. Looking back on all the decades I've lived, It
was very social. The 90s were very social to me. Like it was before, like there was video games out, but people didn't stay in the whole time and all night play video games. We would play for a couple hours, but most of the time we were outside riding bikes or rollerblading, stuff like that, going to the field, building forts. That's what I remember from the 90s.
Yeah. And I think especially in places like Vermont, like music, we were still like, that's when you could be 3 to 6 weeks behind, because they release something on the West Coast and then we'd be getting it later, on Z97. So yeah, I think there was something beautiful about having a slower way of life that allowed us to really connect with each other. That's different, and for us that grew up in that, looking at this generation now and the way they do things, we certainly miss, we see the value of what we had. But, as I'm watching them, I'm kind of like, is there something valuable about the way they're doing it?
Yeah. And a lot of people have apprehension about like social media and devices and stuff for the kids. It is hard to pry kids off of a device. But, what I've been thinking about is like, that is probably just the next step in evolution. Like these things are coming, no matter what. We have to learn how to live with it.
Yeah.
In some way.
We're in such a transition period. I think humanity's in a real transition period right now where we're realizing that certain things don't work. Like capitalism clearly is not working, right? No. Like industrial period, very much over. We're definitely into this technological period,
right?
Which is very different from an industrial period. And like, so I think we're just in kind of this limbo state. And it's like, what does all of this mean? And people are over imperialism and people are over dynasties and people are over... like those things don't work the same way anymore because people have power. They have power because they have access to technology and information in ways that they didn't. They have power in, abilities to like form big groups that are not based on your location like it used to be. It's based on affinity in different ways. And so I'm just living through this kind of epoch, this kind of evolutionary transition, I think is, it's unsettling and it's scary, right? Because we're seeing the demise of so many systems that we thought were stable. But at the same time, it's got to change to give way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I mean, but we also have more generations living at one time than we ever have.
Yeah. But social, what is it? I forgot the term. Social media. I forgot what I was going to say completely now.
The role of social media in like activism.
Well, it gives us all like this sense or this urge, like we want things right now. And I think it's making that part worse. At least I can sense it. My anxiety, like I need, especially because I'm doing the media thing. Like I want it now. I hate downloading things that takes forever. And it gives me anxiety. So I'm sure the world is experiencing that on some level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. And so a lot of my work is helping people realize that, the majority of things in the world, nothing is all good or all bad. It's not all helpful or all harmful. So to develop, rather than sorting things as, sorry, my dog is lying on the light, as good or bad, to say, how is it going to be helpful and how is it going to be harmful? Who is it going to help and who is it going to harm? To get people to look at things multidimensionally versus like when you were on an assembly line in the industrial period, it was sorting things into good or bad, good or bad, good or bad, right? And we kind of developed that sort of sense that we have good people and we have good people and we have bad people in the world versus looking at the complexity of people.
Right.
And so I think that as we move kind of toward this technological revolution, that we need to look at the ways that social media, for example, or even like, all of those things, right? We do live in a fast food culture and, there are ways that that's super helpful. But there's also things like you're mentioning in terms of our attention span, in terms of our ability to be patient, in terms of, our willingness to put in deep work into something that are affected negatively because of that.
Right.
At the same time, these are the folks that'll look for more efficient ways to do something.
I was told lazy people find the fastest way to do things because they don't want to do it. So they find it really efficient ways to go about doing stuff.
Yes. And
I've always found that to be true.
Yeah. And so I think that there's a utility in kind of what we consider to be lazy, just like there's a utility in the saying, if you want something done, ask a busy person.
Right.
Because a busy person is just going to go about the same way that they know how to be efficient. They might not be the ones that are thinking outside the box to create new and innovative ideas.
But they're getting it done.
Yeah. And to me, that's a really great example of how, different labeling people different ways can be something that's helpful and harmful. That when you tell somebody that they're lazy, the helpful part might be that they come up with new ways to do something to be more efficient.
Right.
The harmful part is that they then get this sense of themselves that, they're not good enough. And then
they get hurt internally.
Right. And with busy people, what we see is that there's a sense of reward that, like people trust you, people rely on you, people know you get things done. And at the same time, do you ever feel like you can say no?
Right.
Do you feel like I always set these things off.
I can't do that.
Do you feel like you can set boundaries? So this is why I try to get people to see that things are way more nuanced than either or. The world is not either or.
Yeah.
And I think easing us through this transitional period, that'll be a really important concept.
How long do you think this transitional period is going to last?
It depends on our resistance level. It depends on, global violence factors, global warming factors. Like all of those things are really affecting this transition. And I don't know what we're going to, I don't know how this is going to shake out for humanity.
Yeah. I don't either. That's why I try not to, my biggest plans are just do the next right thing. That's as far as I plan out,
Yeah. And I think I teach, when I talk to people who are frustrated with all of this, identity work and racism, and I'm like, a lot of people, identify with athletics on some level. And I'm like, have you ever, like if you're playing basketball or, whatever you enjoy doing, that there's a ready stance, and the ready stance is never rigid, because if you're rigid and somebody hits you, you're going down.
Yeah.
Likewise,
you gotta be lucid.
Right. But you don't want to be too loose because you don't want to completely fall over, but you want to be ready to pivot or to take on, or to catch, depending on what it is. I said, so we need to develop this kind of collective ready stance for what we're coming into.
That is a very good metaphor.
Yeah, thanks.
How do we do that as a population of completely different people? That's a tough one.
Well, and that's the untangling, right?
Right.
That's Antonine's necklaces. It's like
one thing at a time.
Yeah, I think, the first part is to affirm for people. Number one, you're not, like, your identity isn't going to go away. the people who tend to be most afraid of this are the people that stand to lose, or what they think is lose power. They lose structural power over telling everybody else how to be. They lose being in the center of everybody else's world, but they don't lose being the center of their own world. They don't lose, their right to choose how they live their lives. They just don't get to put that on other people. And so a lot of my work in the beginning is just helping the most resistant to realize, like, relax. Like, you're not going to die because somebody else has pronouns that are different than yours.
Yeah.
Right?
And it doesn't affect you at all. I know it does right now, but in the big scheme of life, it has nothing to do with you.
And what so I try to get into, and, kind of my methodology with some people is just, so tell me the story, like, of what you were taught about gender and why is it so important for you to hold on to that for other people?
Yeah.
It's kind of like Santa Claus. If you want to continue to believe that Santa Claus is a big fat white guy who comes down your chimney every year, you can. But you don't get to tell everybody else that they're bad or they're, abominations, because they don't.
Yeah, because they don't believe in that.
Right. And everybody else is evolving in their knowledge. And if you don't want to accept that our understanding of sex and gender and romantic attraction is all conflated, and it's scientifically, actually, we've learned so much more than what we knew beyond XX, XY, vagina, vulva, penis.
Yeah.
If you don't want to accept that, like, what was that movie by M. Night Shyamalan? Remember where it's like the people, they all wore red and like they like every night they went to bed and they were afraid of this monster.
The Village.
The Village. Yes. Do you remember that? And then it turns out that they were just in this weird little commune in the middle of New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they were in New York City, right? And it's like, if that's how you want to live your life, nobody's going to stop you from doing that. But making decisions for other people so that they can't live as they want to, that's a problem. And if we're going to be a community, that's our collective agreement to each other, is that I'm going to live my life, you get to live your life. But what are those, kind of basic things that we can agree?
But you don't get to tell me or come into my house and tell me what to do, who to pray to,
right?
Who to marry, what to call my own gender.
Yeah. And some people are just like, so I like to ask them, like, so what is it? Like, what is it? So what is it about Chris, believing what he believes that's so inflammatory to you?
Right.
Is he trying to tell you that you have to do that? And people are like, oh, in schools they're teaching kids. Well, I'm like, yes, because we have to live in a global community now.
Yeah. We have to warn your children about how screwed up you are at home.
Listen, this is the reason my field exists.
Right.
Family therapy, right?
Yeah. Big market for the therapist right now, right?
It's been really interesting with COVID was, absolutely awful in so many ways, but like looking at some of the gems that came out of it, like all of a sudden we have access to telehealth, telework, like all of these things that we're now much more like flexible about, because we realize that, businesses won't crumble.
Yeah. And I bet we all keep a little more distance in public now. I kind of do.
I love
it. Just because forever we were all wearing masks, kind of like keeping away 6 feet, man. Give me 6 feet.
Yeah. It's it's that both hand. On one hand, it's like, it's nice to see people, but at the same time, it's also nice that like people don't like run up on me. And here in the U.S., we're big on personal space, right?
Oh yeah.
Whereas other cultures, like if you ever travel to other countries, like people are right next to each other, and I'm like, get off.
Like in Sri Lanka, like all the men, like if they're friends, they hold hands. Like I thought it was very strange. Yeah. But when then I got older, I'm like, it's actually not that big of a deal. But I don't see me, huh?
You went to Sri Lanka?
I've been there twice. What? Yeah. I went there for work when I was working for the sail manufacturer. I went there to teach them how to make sails. It was great.
Okay. I need to create a podcast and have you on to hear about your adventures.
That was a lot of fun. I got robbed. I do plan on telling that story, but I got to tell it with the guy it happened with, because it's a really cool story, but we got robbed and we almost got killed. But it'll take like an hour or two to tell it. So you have to wait for that. It was fun though.
I mean, that's not awesome that happened, but one of the things that I so appreciate about kind of watching your evolution and your trajectory, like, your kind of Phoenix journey is like, the way that you've taken up storytelling as both healing and empowering, but also as a gift to the rest of the world. Like you're a storyteller. And I think, listening, I would listen to your recordings with your dad.
Oh yeah.
I listened to all of that because
Thank you.
Well, of course. I mean, and it's my family too. And you're like, I didn't get to see Uncle Ricky before he passed. And like with him and the rift between him and my mom, I haven't, he never reached out to me. We never talked. And so it was so great to hear you asking him those questions and to hear him, what a way to honor him, the greatest honor, I think, is to be seen.
Right.
And you do that, with your podcast and with your stories. So
I try to, I'm telling a story. I just don't know what it is. I know that there is something in everything that I make. I am telling a story. I'm just not sure what it is yet.
Yeah. Well, what is the name of your podcast again?
Almost Above Average.
Almost Above Average. That's right. I was like, that is the cleverest name.
It's clever, but it doesn't make sense, and that's why I like it.
But it does.
It does, but it doesn't. It's just a little bit wrong.
It is, but I think that's what makes it in right relationship to this fucked up, crazy world.
Exactly. I think that's my whole thing.
There was I don't know if you ever listened to. I think it was NPR used to play Lake Wobegon. It was where all the kids are above average. It was this really cool series that they had. You kind of remind me of that.
Nice.
It might be good for you to check it out. But it's all the kids are above average. And
yeah, I'll have to check it out. And then I wanted to create this. Man, I don't know if you knew this. Did you know that I tried to kill myself before I moved out here?
I did. Yeah.
So there was this when I got out of the hospital. I felt good when I was in the hospital getting treated, going through all the counseling and all that stuff. I felt okay. And then I got out and it all came back immediately. And I started drinking immediately. It was such a horrible feeling. But I remember the only person in the world that I wanted to talk to was my ex. And when we were talking, we were just fantasizing about North Carolina. I think she was just saying it to make me feel better because I was just in, just horrible, horrible pain or whatever. And so we were just fantasizing about moving to North Carolina. And I was like, I know what I'm going to do when I get there. Whatever I do when I get there, it's going to involve a microphone. That's all I know. That's all I want to do. And I said that in the throes of my depression, the bottom of the barrel, So it's funny that it's happening for real, Such a, I manifested
that shit. Yeah, you made that happen. That's not fun. There's nothing at all coincidental. You created that from the depths of this place. No matter how broken you were, there was still something within you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That ember. And look at you. Look what you've been able to do. And my goodness, that just is just some strength of soul.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
There's one thing I did want to ask you about before we even go off.
You've got a great look on your face. There you are.
The what?
I said you had a great look on your face there.
Oh, a great look on my face?
Yeah, you were like... It was a smile.
There was this... So I live in North Carolina now, and what I imagined when I moved here was that it was going to be just full of racism, and that was my picture of it before I got here. Then I was looking at, when I was researching you a little bit, there was a Black Lives Matter sign, and someone had painted over it. Was that your house?
Yeah, they vandalized the sign. We put it on our neighbor's yard because we were already starting to get some death threats and things like that. And so my neighbor put it on her yard for us, and somebody came by and threw white paint all over it.
That's crazy. I haven't seen racist stuff like that here in North Carolina at all. And that's why I was surprised to see it in Vermont.
People make assumptions, right? The Northeast has this air of elitism that it is damning, it is choking, it is horrible. We just do. And we look down on the South so badly. And it's so wrong because the North is just as racist. It's just different flavors of racism up here. and like super blatant. We have white supremacists. Vermont, for a while, we had the fastest growing network of white supremacy organizations in the U.S.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And people don't realize that. And the reason that it goes so unchecked is because of that white liberal fantasy that, oh, Vermont was the first state that ended slavery. So, we're above all of that. We're post-racial. Like, it is the most obnoxious, self-aggrandizing, like, untruthiness that exists in, related to race in the United States, is this whole idea. And, I think what people don't realize is that in the South, there's a couple of things. Number one, there's way more Black people. There's way more brown people. There's way more Mexican people. Mm-hmm. And therefore, there has to be, and there's critical masses of people. So there can be whole communities. There's all of these wonderful things that happen through the South that don't happen in the Northeast.
Yeah. And
there's a reason we don't live here. And it's not because we don't like the cold. And so we live in Chicago, right? We live in Minnesota. We live in all these places. And I think because Vermont was resting on their laurels so hard in their systems and patting themselves on the back that they weren't paying attention. And they were letting white supremacy slip by in all of its forms and formats. And it got to a point where white supremacists knew that this is a place to come. Like, did you see the skit, the Saturday Night Live skit?
Mm-mm.
Oh my gosh. Can I show you?
Here, I can pull it up and we can watch it together.
Yeah.
What is it on YouTube?
SNL Vermont. Just type that in.
Oh, Vermont skip. Here, I'll share the screen. We can look at it together.
Mm-hmm. To preface it, this came out, a good friend of mine, Kaia Morris, was Vermont's lone Black woman in the legislature, and she was harassed out of the legislature by a white supremacist, a vowed white supremacist. And it was...
She was pushed out?
Yeah. I mean, he's a white supremacist. He had like... But the state did nothing about it. And it was like this big, huge thing. And that's actually because I was the head of the NAACP. So I'm like, we're coming in, we're going to support her, we're going to protect her, we're going to do everything we can. And the state ultimately was like, it's just little H harassment. Which
it's minimizing like that is the issue. It's minimizing people's feelings like that causes all the anger, That's
right. Well, it's not just anger. It was real threats to her safety. And then as I am, in the spotlight for, being the head of the NAACP and the murders of George Floyd and everybody's looking to me to help, fix our systems, I start getting death threats from VPNs in Canada. My kid is raising the Black Lives Matter flag at school, and she's getting threatened online and harassed by grown adults, and the school is saying there's nothing they can do about it. So there's this complacency that's happening across our systems that are supposed to protect and or hold people accountable that was not happening.
Yeah. Not at the school level, not at the federal level either?
Not at any level. So I preface this video with that to say this video came out as Kaia, the legislator's case, is blowing up nationally. The SNL did this in the midst of that.
Okay, let's see.
Legalist.
Did I freeze? Are you frozen?
Can black players on your team. That him has something important to say. So come on up here. All right. Okay. So friends, you've seen it. It's been over a year since we neo-Confederate volunteers marched on Charlottesville, and things haven't gotten better. More foreigners coming in, more strangers who don't respect our way of life. We're losing our culture, and I will not sit quietly. You with me? Yeah! All right. So tonight, I have a plan, a grand vision. If they're going to keep coming here, then we're going to go someplace else. Our own place, for our own people. Yeah. No immigrants, no minorities. An agrarian community where everyone lives in harmony because every single person is white. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I know that place. That sounds like Vermont.
The Vermont? No, sir. What I'm talking about is a place purely for Caucasians, where even the folks who wash the dishes and pick the fruit are white.
Oh, yeah, that's Vermont.
Are you new here?
Yeah, I'm originally from up north. But,
whoa.
Don't worry, I'm from Boston.
Oh, all right, good. Okay, good.
But I've been to Vermont many times, and it's just like what you're saying.
I'm sorry, but you don't seem to understand. What I'm proposing is a whole new society. Going back to a time when a white man can take things that he grew from the ground and trade them with another white man who grew things from the ground.
Yeah, that's a farmer's market, and they're all over Vermont.
Damn it, this ain't some Yankee commune, all right? The place I'm envisioning is a paradise. Country stores.
Yep.
Covered bridges.
Oh, yeah.
The kind of place where you can drive around in an old car and wave to folks on porches having breakfast.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I saw that last week in Vermont.
Well, be that as it may, no one wants to move to Vermont, right?
I don't know. It sounds kind of nice. Are there lots of dogs around wearing bandanas?
Oh, well, yeah, of course there are.
Okay.
Look, y'all, we're getting off track. Todd, you don't want to go to Vermont, do you?
I don't know, Jim. I was thinking, you know how for this year's White Nationals retreat, we were going to go to Colonial Williamsburg again? Hey, maybe we should go to Vermont.
Todd! You love Colonial Williamsburg. It's things as they should be.
I know, Jim, but this place sounds nice. Pancakes on the porch, spiced apple compote. The leaves change colors, but the people never do. Why wouldn't you want to go?
Damn.
Okay, now I just found an Airbnb in Shelburne. Listen to this. Cozy 8-bedroom farmhouse, vaulted ceilings, 2-way fireplace, fly fishing, and off-roading nearby. That's a Caucasian paradise, y'all. Come on now,
All right, everybody. Okay, you should wrap up your little Confederate pity party, man. There's an A&A meeting starting in about 10 minutes.
Hold on, William. You ever been to Vermont?
Vermont? Why would I want to go there? There's no hip-hop on the radio, people paying to run around in corn mazes, not a black face for miles. Hell no.
Okay, all right. Thank you, William. Okay, well, it's settled. We're going to Vermont.
Maybe we can all rent Subarus.
See, that was kind of my view of Vermont. I didn't know.
It is true. All of it is true. And the other side, and so this came out as, everything was happening. Mm-hmm. And it was funny because NPR, like all of a sudden, they interviewed me, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, so what's your kind of response to this? I'm like, well, you laugh because it's funny and you cry because it's true.
Yeah. That's a perfect response.
It's Vermont, and a lot of we're changing it, things like that. It is changing.
Right.
But even running the NAACP, I think one of the first things that I thought about in starting the branch was this can't be just about Black folks. It's got to be intersectional, and it's got to be intersectional with the Abenaki, right? Because if we're going to change racism in Vermont, we have to start by undoing the harm, that kind of created Vermont as we know it.
Right.
And so we did a lot of solidarity work together. And so there's a lot of solidarity between racial justice groups and queer groups and Abenaki and so we all.
What's Abenaki? I was picturing the aliens that I think made the Earth when you said Abenaki. What's that?
The Abenaki are the original people of Vermont.
Oh, were they Indian?
Yeah, they were
Native American.
Yeah, 16,000 years before.
No shit.
Yeah, before the white folks came.
Before the whites discovered it.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting because you look at our family history, right? We're kind of like the 6th generation Vermonters, right? And Grampy's land, right? He, his father. I don't know if he came down from Quebec or if somebody else did, right? So our French-Canadian family came down and just plopped right down in the center, literally the geographic center of what is now Vermont.
Just crossed the border and set up shop.
Yeah, that's what they did. And so, what does that mean for us as kind of biracial folks?
Yeah. We were kind of the original brown skins in Vermont. Is that what you're saying?
No, there were actually, interestingly, Vermont's ratio of Black and brown people during the Civil War was significantly higher than it was for much of the 1900s.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And that's because Vermont had the 54th, 57th Regiment. Vermont had one of the only places that Black folks could go and form a regiment to fight in the Civil War.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
Out of Rutland.
Yeah, no shit.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. I was reading an article. Someone called you a black supremacist.
I know. He was running for governor.
You were running for governor?
No, he was.
And he called you a black supremacist?
Oh, he's not the only one, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Did that give him political points?
Probably with his white supremacist buddies.
Yeah, that's lame. What was that about? Just because you were speaking out?
Because I was running the NAACP.
Yeah.
That was it.
So,
I didn't have to do anything. All I had to say was Black Lives Matter, and we need to pay attention to the ways that race shapes what we're doing.
Right.
That's literally all I had to do.
How many NAACP chapters are in Vermont now?
There are 2 branches, and then there are 2 student chapters.
That they didn't exist before you?
No, none of that existed before me. There was one branch that existed in Champlain. Mary Brown Guillory started the Champlain area branch of the NAACP, and she and I met, and she's like, "You need to start one in Rutland. This is the biggest area of complaints coming out of the state." So I was like, "Okay," right. But then she left like 6 months later, and I'm like, "Wait, what?" So it was just me. And then I met Stefan like about 8 months later after that. And I was like, can you start a branch down in Wyndham? And he did. And, they're sister branches and they do so much together. But when I left the area, my family, again, was facing such targeted harassment and threats. I'm like, I need to do something different. And I think it's time to give the NAACP over to somebody else who has another platform. Like I started the branch. I had like almost $250,000 in like over 100,000, in fundraisers that I'd done. But then we had like another 100 and something thousand to create a leadership institute that I had helped secure. So I'm like, this is a perfect time for somebody else to come in and shape this in the next form, of the NAACP. And so Mia Schultz took over for me, and she has been absolutely amazing. She's such a wonderful leader, and she's doing really great work, in Rutland and across Vermont. So yeah, it's still going strong. They're still doing their thing. And like I said, I do their criminal justice. Like when they need help with criminal justice stuff, I'm the one, because that's one of the systems that I work. Is
that your role as far as the NAACP right now? You kind of step in and consult?
I'm the chair of the criminal justice committee.
Oh, okay. Chair of the committee. Nice. So when are you going to run for governor?
Never.
Are you going to hold a political office?
No, I don't want to. The number of people that I could have, I certainly could have, but I'm not interested in being a politician. I love being able to affect systems by, helping the people that want to do that. I like helping people to be able to navigate systems. I like helping people to realize, how systems are healthy and unhealthy, and what do they do with those kinds of things. But I don't want to be a lawmaker. It's too limiting for me. Because law is only one part of a community.
That's true.
And I don't. Yeah, I support the governor. Like I've sat in, Governor Scott and I have had a number of conversations when I was the head of the NAACP, especially on, racial equity work and governance. And I have, a number of state contracts. But I also work with schools, and I work with national security space, and I work with law enforcement, and I work with mental health practitioners. And, I just love being able to help people from that perspective.
Yeah. How do people find you if they want to seek your help?
They can go to intentional-evolution.com. That's my website. You can just Google Tabitha Moore, Vermont, and I'm going to come up. It doesn't take much.
You are.
I'm right there. It's so funny because, you Google yourself every once in a while to make sure that there's nothing untoward happening to you, or, people taking your likeness and doing things with it.
Yeah.
And I'll Google myself every once in a while, and I look at all the other Tabitha Moores that exist, and I'm like, I wonder what it's like to be you.
Yeah.
There was this one, I think I looked up, her name was Tabitha Moore, but she had done or said something like horribly racist, and she was like a white woman, and I'm like, I wonder, Anyway, so yeah, intentional-evolution.com is my website, and contact info's on there, and yeah.
I'll also put a link in the show notes. I'll put a link to your Facebook too. Well, maybe not. Do you want people on your Facebook?
No, shut after everything happened. I really kind of privatized my life in a lot of ways. So,
well, that's good.
I mean, it can be on my social media, but you don't really, like you see it. There's nothing on there except me being like, today I ate 16 marshmallows.
I had a good time at lunch today.
Here's a picture.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to ask you one more thing. I forgot what it was though. Oh, no, I wanted to tell you something. So the reason I asked you about running for office, because kind of my life plan in the next 9 years, or in my 50s, I'm going to run for either Senate or Congress. I don't know if I have a shot to do it. I'm just going to try it. You know why? Because I watched an idiot get into the White House in 2016. So I think I can do it.
Yeah. Right. I think that's a great idea. I mean, I think you should also talk to Bill. My brother is, Bill is just like one of the smartest people I've ever met. But he puts himself down, I think, a little too much in that realm. But he could run today for state senate, and he would be elected by Rutland County. There's no doubt in my mind. But he's got a whole plan. He's finishing up working. He's the assistant town manager for Brandon, the rec director and economic development director. So if you're interested in that whole realm. Yeah.
Might as well get him on just to get to know each other.
Listen, you need to do your trajectory now and start doing some of these smaller political offices. If you're in North Carolina, who are you going to be up against? Wait, you have Reverend Barber. He's not in your community, is he?
I've never heard that name.
Hold on. Let me look this up for you.
I don't even know who my representatives are.
Reverend Barber was the head of your NAACP there, I think. And he left the NAACP to start the Poor People's Campaign, which was an old MLK revival. He is freaking
what's his
amazing. Name? Barber.
Barber?
Is he? Yeah, William Barber. Uh-huh. He was the president of the state conference of the NAACP there. He's amazing.
So Reverend Dr. William Barber.
Yeah. He is, he's amazing.
I wonder if I could get him on the podcast.
Maybe. I mean, you live in North Carolina, so maybe, but he's an icon.
Okay.
In the Black Lives Matter movement. Mm-hmm.
Nice. I like that.
I think he's running the Poor People's Campaign now.
Okay.
Just a pretty amazing dude.
I'll have to check it out. Thank you for listening to this insightful episode of Almost Above Average with Chris McIntyre, featuring my cousin, Dr. Tabitha Moore. We hope you found her story and perspectives on social change valuable. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review and sharing your feedback. Your support helps us continue to bring you engaging content and inspiring conversations. Don't forget to subscribe for more empowering stories and thought-provoking discussions, and thank you for being part of the community. Almost Above Average is produced by me.